Welcome to the video. This mixed media do-it-yourself project is part of the Miniature Wildlife Series, Episode 17, Making 1/12 Scale Fuchsias using copy paper, floral wire, polypropylene filament, and artificial craft flower stamen pistil pieces. To make the flowers, I use a piece of artificial craft stamen, 3 paper punched petal pieces out of paper, and thin filament for the inside. I tried several different paper punch combinations. For this video, I use one 8 petal with the long petal parts 3/8 of an inch, 2 6 petals with short petal parts, one is 5/16 and the other is 1/4 of an inch. To make the flower and bud stem bases, I used artificial craft flower stamen pistil pieces. They come in clusters. Another option is to use 2 strands of sewing thread, glued and stiffened together, place in a clamp and cut in about 1/2 inch pieces. Then glue a microfoam ball at one end. When it's dry, paint it to the color you want. I am using photos of fuchsias for the color idea. Some of them have lighter white and others have bright pinks with varying shades of green. For this center mini 8 stamen and 1 pistil pieces, I use thin filament like polypropylene or doll wigging pieces, which can be painted. Next, gently curl the 8-piece petal with a stylus on a foam mat. I am making 4 flowers here with different color combinations. I use the stylus and I just gently press down on each of the petals, and I whirl it around in the middle. If you look off to the left where I'm holding the purple foam pad, you can see some other ones that I've already done to give you an idea what I'm going for. So I just gently press them around. Once I have them all pressed around, I'm going to take my tweezers and I'm going to turn it upside down. Once I get those upside down, then I'm going to, whoops, keeps kind of flipping around here. I'll get them flipped around and I'm going to take one of the little stem pieces and then I'm going to glue that to the top, straight up like that, on the left. Just a little dab of glue, and then just gently place it. And I'm using tacky glue, but use whatever glue you want. And if you just hold it on, and it should just kind of stick right there, and then I'll let it dry. Next, I'm going to take the 6-petaled flowers, and for each flower, you'll need the large and the small, and I'm just going to fold it in half. Just press it together and fold it to half. And on the purple foam mat, you can see where I've already folded them in half to give you an idea. So I take a tweezers and I take a piece and then I just fold it over with my thumb and finger. Then I'm going to take the smaller 6-petal flower piece. I'm going to reopen it up. I'm going to take the stylus and I'm going to press it down into the foam. And I'm going to use my tweezers to kind of pull up the sides up around the stylus. I need to have that center part so that I can add the filament in the middle. So I just gently squeeze it around or push it up. You can use a toothpick or a pin if you need, just to kind of get it around and give it a little shape, kind of a cone shape. Do the same for the larger 6 petals by opening it up. Then use a little bit larger ball stylus end and then push the pieces up and around because you're going to place the smaller flower petal inside of the larger one. To assemble the flower, apply a dot of glue to the top center of the inside of the 8-petal flower. Next, take the large 6-petal flower that's in a cone shape and place it with the little tip end into the glue. Adjust it so it's going straight up and down. Let it dry. I place it into a little clothespin and then I move on and repeat that step to the rest of the flowers, adding a dab of glue and then putting the 6th petal into the center, and I'll place that in a clamp and let that dry. There are many different fuchsia colors, and so the 4 that I'm making, 2 of them have the fuchsia or the bright pink on the outside. One has the purple on the inside, and the other one has the white on the inside. And then I'm making two that have the white on the outside with pink on the inside and purple. Many of the wild fuchsias grow in a shrub-like plant from Central and South America locations. My versions of the fuchsias are probably the hybrid designs, but the hummingbirds seem to love them too. Once the large flower petal is dried, go ahead and add another dab of glue to the top center and place the smaller 6-petal flower inside. Repeat the steps for the rest of the flowers. Now you're ready to add the stamens and the pistil. It'll be about 9 pieces. Grab a little bit of the filament. I use the pinks for the insides of the outside of the dark pink flowers, and then I use the lighter colors for the ones that have the white outside. And I leave it kind of long because you can clip it toward the end. Once I have picked up a group of the filament, then I trim it so they're all even. I add a dab of glue, and now I'm going to place that into the center of the flower. You can add one piece of the filament at a time, dunk it in glue, and then put it in the center, or do a little bunch and then fill in where you think you need some more pieces. When the filaments have had time to dry, take the scissors and trim them. And I'm going on an angle, so the tallest one will be in the center, which would typically be that pistil, and then the stamens surround the tall piece around the ends. Use the tweezers to kind of spread the little pieces apart, and then once you've got them spread apart, take a little bit of glue, and on the very tops of these little filaments, you're going to build it up so it has a little layer there. You can use the glue, let it dry, and then maybe add another coat. Repeat the glue drops to the rest of the flowers. When the glue is dry, then I touch up the flowers. So the flower stems, I might add a little bit of green. After I add the green, then I look at the flowers, and if there's any clear glue spots that you can see, I'll take the white or the pink and I'll go over that little glue spot and cover that. For the flower buds, the little pieces, the artificial stamens, craft flower stamens, I will also add green paint on the stems. Next, I'll touch up the stamens, maybe make them a little bit pinker on the edges. Then I'll take white paint, and at the very tips where the glue is dried, add a little white paint. Repeat for the rest of the flowers. You may want to do a second coat of the paint. Once you get a first coat applied, let it dry, then do another coat. When the paint is dry, take your tweezers, and then on the long 8-petal stems, go every other one. So push one up, one down, one up, one down. So it alternates to kind of fluff up the flower and give it the fuchsia shape. I make 12 to 20 flowers for each planter with 12 to 20 buds. I made several plants, so I set up a process where I did everything in stages. To make the greenery stem, or the branch for the flowers, cut 26 gauge wire, floral wire, into 1.5-inch pieces or so. Then paint them green and let dry. Next, punch green floral shapes. I'm using a large 6-inch leaf, and then a thin 8-inch leaf, and then a thin 8-inch flower shape. You can do 2 to 3 of each shape, and you can make each branch a little bit different. They don't all have to be the same. Next, I'll take the little green leaf pieces, and I'll use a white color pencil and make vertical stripes up and down the leaves. Once I do the top side, then I flip it over and I do it to the back side. Then I take a craft or sewing pin while I have the greenery on the foam mat, and I punch a hole through it and kind of run it up the needle, because that's where I'm going to place that floral wire through. So just go through all of the flowers through the greenery, and then take your stylus and just kind of shape the leaves just a tiny bit. We're going to do this before we put it on the stem. And then slide the little greenery pieces, going from smallest to largest, onto the stem. And you can refluff up the leaves if the little textured shape gets bent out. Once you have the number of leaves that you want to put on, to the stem, you're going to need to leave a 1/4 of an inch or so at each end, probably 1/2 inch at the end with the largest flower, and then a 1/4 of an inch for the one with the smallest little flower shape or greenery on it, because that's where you're going to place your flowers. And then the larger end, about a 1/2 inch, that's what you're going to put into your plant potter. At this point, I'm going to take the 2 ends and I'm going to make a semicircle arc, because these fuchsias that I'm making, they hang down. There are some fuchsias that apparently they grow upright, but these will hang down, so I'm going to bend my branches in an arc shape. Now that I have the shape that I want to make sure I leave the 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch or so at the bottom of the stem. I'm going to glue the bottom of each of these flowers. So I put a little dab of glue, use my tweezers, and then I slide down the next piece just so it catches, and then it's going to glue right there. Then I'm going to add another dab of glue in between, maybe about 1/8 of an inch down, and just place a little dab of glue there. Then I'm going to slide down the next leaf, and then I will do the next one, and I move it all the way up to the top, again spacing out in between and making sure I have that 1/4 of an inch at the top of the branch. And while the glue is still wet, you have a lot of flexibility here. You can move the little leaves or the green leaves up and down to adjust. And if you need to add another few little leaves at the top, or you need to cut off a little bit of that wire at the top, you can do that too. Now I'm comparing a completed branch on the right with the one I was just working on. And I think I'm going to go ahead and add some more smaller 8-petal leaves at the end before I add the flowers. Before I add the flowers and the buds, I'll need to cut off a little bit of the stems, leaving about 1/8 of an inch from the flower or the bud end. Then I hold on to the bottom end, put a dab of glue to the flower stem end, and place it onto the top of it. I kind of stagger it, and I seem to put like 3 on the end of each branch, and then I like to do about 3 buds right around the end of the branch. And you can kind of stagger it. It might take a few seconds till it takes hold, but you just use your tweezers and place it where you like it. And again, you have some flexibility here before it dries. And if you think you need a little bit more greenery, I took a little sunburst pattern and I folded it up. Petal I punched out, and it's kind of in that shape right there, that little starburst. And I just folded it and then quartered it and then rolled it up. And then I'll stick it in between if I think it needs a little more greenery in between the flowers and the buds. Another option besides paper to make the flowers would be out of clay. And I have not tried to do that. I like using the paper for me because I can get a very thin flower shape. When I try to do clay flowers, I just make them a little bit too thick. But that is definitely another option for those people that like to use clay. And also you can make the branches different shapes. So I made a smaller branch just using the starburst and the small 8-petaled flowers. So I can make a variety once I put them into the little flower pot. I forgot to cut this one, so I'm going to cut that little bud. I didn't paint that one yet, but that's okay. When I do my touch-ups, I can go back through and add a little green to that stem. Then I repeat the process to make the stem and the flowers. And I do about 3 or 4 branches and then some smaller pieces. And then once I get each branch done, I use some filler. So I'll take some little pieces of greenery and then I'll fold it. You could use the stylus and shape it, and then I'll just put it in between places, just where it needs a little extra greenery. Once you have the greenery branches the way you want them, go ahead and do some touch-up with some paint to fill in any glue spots or add to some of the stems. When the glue and paint are dry, now you can assemble. I'm using one of the cap hanging baskets that I made in a prior video, but once you get the flowers on and you have them hanging down, the fuchsias are hanging down, it's going to be about 3/4 of an inch tall and anywhere from an inch or longer from the overhang. So I take a branch and I take a quilting sewing pin and I make a hole so that I can place the wire stem into the little soil base of the potted plant. This stem is about 1/4 of an inch, so I need to make sure that I make my hole that deep. What I do is I take that little sewing pin or quilting pin and I just kind of jiggle it around in the hole. And sometimes it's hard to find that hole again, so kind of keep the pen in there if you can, or you can see where the hole is. Then you're going to grab your little branch and then make sure it fits. Once you get it into the hole, you'll be able to adjust if you want to. And then I'll go to the next hole. And it's easier for me to do one at a time. Just kind of jiggle it around and get ready for the next branch. And at this point I have not glued the prior branch in there. I just want to see how this fits and how it looks. And I've found my hole and I've got that branch in there, because you can reshape your flowers and the greenery once you get it done. So now I'm going to make my next hole, kind of jiggle it around. Underneath this soil base, which is dry tea bits, I have some foam, little foam balls. So it's real easy to make these little holes. And I stick my next branch in, and I'm going to take a look at it and see if it's okay. Do I need to add that 4th branch? Do I need to add some smaller little pieces? And then I can take a look at it, and I think I'm going to add one right there. That's that small piece. And once you're done, if you think you need to add some more flowers or more buds, you can do that too. And then repeat the process for the rest of your fuchsia plants. You can glue the stems into the soil, and if you feel like it, add a little bit of a matte sealer to the leaves. You could try different size fuchsias with smaller bases, smaller paper punches, and tiny flower bits. And you could place the fuchsias in a cart, on a porch, or in a garden area. I hope you like and share this mini fuchsia video. Thank you for watching.